back to Business Office Specialist. In today's video, we're going to get introduced to our first app in the Google Suite, the word processing app known as Google Docs. We're also going to look at some basic text formatting options that are available inside of that software. So this is what Google Docs looks like. Since this is the first time we've used this, let me get you introduced to a few basic features and their names. At the very top of the screen, you have what's called the title bar. The title bar is where the name of the document is located. Right now, the name of this document is Untitled Document because I haven't given it a title yet. We'll do that a little bit later. Right below the title bar is the menu. So this has all of the drop-downs for the different features and tools that we'll be using throughout this course. Below that is what's called a ribbon. The ribbon is a thin strip of different commonly used actions or commands that are all represented by symbols. Some of these symbols may look familiar to you, some of them might be new. We'll get introduced to each of these symbols as we begin using them throughout the course. Below the ribbon, you have a large area where you can see the document you're currently working on. We call this a document window. Inside the document window, on the left and the very top, you have rulers. The rulers help you identify your exact position on the piece of paper, as well as sizing different objects and setting different settings. We'll look at the rulers and how they can be helpful to us, again, throughout the course. On the far right of the document window, you have what's called a scroll bar. You're probably familiar with scroll bars. You use them in a lot of other software. If you hover your mouse over the scroll bar, click and hold your mouse, you can drag it to navigate quickly through a large document. It's very handy when you have multiple pages. So those are some of the very basic features to Google Docs. Let's talk about text editing. Since text is a big part of a word processing system, we'll want to know what features are available to help us modify that text to make it look nice and fit the style of the document we're working with. Now, in order to talk about text editing, the first thing we're going to need is, well, text. So give me just a second. I'm going to type in some text, and I'd like you to do that as well. We're going to type several rows of text, and we're going to double space them, meaning that at the end of each line, we're going to hit enter 2 times so that there's an extra space between each line, which makes it easier for us to see the lines as we're working with them. Now, if you're viewing this video as part of my Canvas course, you'll want to look at the instructions in Canvas, as I have very specific instructions on what I want this list of yours to contain. Okay, so here I've created some text for us to use. What I'd like to do now is introduce you to a few text editing tools, one line at a time. So it would be helpful if we could highlight the entire line at once. And if you remember from our previous videos, there are some shortcuts that can help us with this. As a quick review, if you move your mouse over a word and click once, it will move the insertion point to that text. If you double click, meaning that you click twice very quickly, it will highlight one word. If you triple click, or you click 3 times very quickly, then it will highlight the entire paragraph, or in this case, the entire row. So that's one way that we can highlight the whole row fast. Another way you can do it is if you click on the very front of a line and hold the Shift key and then push the down arrow, it will highlight from where your insertion point begins to the end of the paragraph. So that's another way you can use the keyboard to highlight the entire row quickly. Whichever you choose, we're going to be highlighting rows a lot today, so those are some shortcuts that can speed this up for you. All right, since we have the first line highlighted, let's start there. And the first text editing tool I want to introduce to you is called a font. You're probably already familiar with these. We use them a lot in word processing. A font is just the style of the letters in the text. The font in Google Docs is located right here on the ribbon. If I bring my mouse up and click on the drop-down arrow next to the font, I will see a list of the more common fonts that are available inside of Google Docs. You can scroll through this list and pick something that you like. If you don't find anything here that you like, Google Docs now includes a More Fonts option on the menu. If you click on that, you'll get a pop-up box that lists a lot of different fonts. And I'm just going to scroll through here, show you a few of the options that are available. You can see there's a lot here to choose from. If you can't find what you're looking for in this list, I would be really surprised. So there's definitely a lot here for whatever you're looking for. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and close this and come back to the fonts drop down and choose from the basic fonts. For this first line, let's go ahead and change this to Times New Roman. So if you're following along with yours, go to your first line, highlight the entire line, and then change the font to Times New Roman. Now, that's the first tool. The next tool I'd like to look at is font size. So let's select the second line. I'm going to triple click on that and highlight that line. And let's change the font size on this. Font size is located just to the right of the fonts we just used, right here on the ribbon. So if I bring my mouse up and click the drop down on that, you'll see a list of some of the more popular sizes for text in a word processing software like Google Docs. Now, if you don't want to select from that list, you have a very specific font you'd like to use, you can click in the little box and then you can delete the current size and type in any size that you want. For this second row, let's go ahead and increase the size to 18. So I've now made my size 18. If you remember from previous videos when we were talking about shortcuts, there is a shortcut key to increase and decrease your fonts as well. If you hold the Control and Shift keys and then press period, it will increase your font size, or comma will decrease your font size. Now, I don't recommend using this a lot, but if you're making minor adjustments to font while you're typing, this is a really handy way to do that. So that's your font size. Now let's say that we make a mistake. That's going to happen a lot as we're learning new things throughout this course. So in our shortcuts, we learned there was an option called undo, which would remove the last thing that you did, and an option called redo that would put it back. The shortcut keys for that is Control Z to undo something, Control Y to redo something. If you don't want to use the shortcuts or you forget what they are, there are menu options for that on the ribbon as well. These two symbols right here on the left side of the ribbon are your undo and your redo. So if I come up and click on undo, you can see that that is undoing the reduction of font size that I had. If I press redo, it's going to put them back. So undo and redo are very common things. It's really nice to have them when you make a quick mistake. Instead of panicking or having to redo a bunch of stuff, you can just press undo or Control Z, the hotkey, and that will fix it. All right, so let's take a look at another font option. This time, let's come down to the third row. So I'm going to triple click on my third row and highlight that. And then let's change the color on this one. So one of the cool things that you can do with font inside of Google Docs is change the font color. The font color symbol is right here on the ribbon. So I'm going to come up and click on the text color, and you'll see there's a whole list of different options here available to you. Now, a couple of things that I found handy just knowing how colors work inside of Google Docs and the Google Suite. The top row is all of your grayscale. So it starts at black, goes through shades of gray, all the way to white. All of your standard colors are on the second row. So if I give you a standard color I want you to change it to, you're going to find those here on that second row. So just like in our previous videos, if I hover my mouse over them, you can see them. So I have red, orange, yellow. These are just the standard colors. So if I just say blue, you're probably going to find it here on this second row. Then when you drop down to the further rows, you start to get into specific colors. This is kind of like going through a Crayola box of crayons. So now I get light blue, cornflower blue, light green, light yellow. These are some of your more named colors. If you want something custom, you can come down to the custom button, click on that. It'll open up a shader where you can change the hue down at the bottom and then move your box around to choose a color from here. The other thing I really like about Google Docs is it does have the hexadecimal code up here at the top. A hexadecimal code is a code for every color under the rainbow. It's used a lot in HTML, the language that you code websites in. And if you're looking for a very specific color, oftentimes you can go to the web, find that color, ask for the hexadecimal code for it, and then drop that into here and get that exact color. And I use that a lot in Google Docs to make sure I'm getting just the color I want. So there's that customization if you're interested in it. But for right now, we're just going to choose from our standard colors. So let's open up the text color again. And for this third line, let's make it blue. So we're going to come over to the actual blue color and click on that. And now my text has changed to that color. The next thing I want to look at is bolding. So again, this is one you're probably familiar with, but let's double or triple click and highlight row 4. And bold is one of the symbols on your ribbon. It's found right here. And if I click on that, all that bold does is make your letters thicker so that they really show up. This is a great way to highlight things. If you're writing an instruction list and you want to make sure that a certain word pops out to people, or you're trying to emphasize something in a story, the bold is a really great way to do that. There's also other things that we can use to highlight things or accent things so that they stand out. So let's triple click the 5th row, highlight that, and make this one italic. So what italic does is it slants the letters to the right just slightly. This is used a lot when you're, especially when you're writing reports and things. We use italics to identify the name of a book or article or piece of artistic work. So you'll see italics used a lot when you're discussing titles of different artistic works, as well as many other things as well. But that's italics, and that's where you can find it. The last one we can look at is right next to italics. It's underlined. So if I highlight the next row, let's underline that, and you'll see the underline just puts a small line across the bottom. These three are probably something you're familiar with. We use them a lot inside of all kinds of word processing systems, and you've seen them often. But now you know what the symbols are and where to find them in case you need them. The next text editing tool that I want to look at is highlighting. So we've talked about changing the color of the actual text, but you can also change the background color behind the text. So let's highlight the next row. And the highlighting tool is a symbol on your ribbon that looks like a marker. You can see it right here next to the text color. If I click on that, it is also going to open a color grid for us to choose a color from. Typically speaking, when people highlight something, it's usually yellow. It just comes from our experience working with paper where your highlighters are often a yellow color. So I'm going to pick yellow for mine, but you can honestly pick any color from the wheel. And all that does is change the background color next to or around your text so it looks like you've taken a marker and highlighted across it. Again, this is a great way to emphasize things. It's not typically used in most text, but when you're editing something for someone or you want to emphasize something, this is a way to do it as well. So the last tool that I want to talk about today is the clear formatting tool. Basically what clear formatting does is it erases any changes that you've made to the text and returns it to whatever the default was for the document when it was opened. So for us, the default for this document was font style Arial, size 11 with no other formatting. So if I were to highlight everything in the document, and remember, the shortcut for that is Control A. I'm going to highlight all of the text we've changed today, and I'm going to click the clear formatting, and I want you to watch what happens. So clear formatting is right here on the ribbon, on the very far right. I'm going to bring my mouse up and click on that, and watch my text. So you can see all of the editing that we made is gone. And if you look up at the ribbon, you'll see that the text style, the font style, is now Arial, and the font size is 11. That is our default. Clear formatting isn't often used. Where I like to use clear formatting is when I copy and paste things from the internet. So for example, if I'm writing an article and I want to use a really good quote, instead of typing that whole quote out, oftentimes I'll go back to the website I got it from, copy that quote, and paste it into my work. But when you copy and paste from the internet, it pastes the formatting from that internet page into Google Docs. And so that paragraph, that quote, is going to look different than everything else. Sometimes it's a different color, it's a different font style, and it's notably different. And I don't like that. It doesn't look professional. So you can paste it in and then clear formatting, and it will erase all the formatting changes or the formatting that it came in with and return it to the default formatting that matches the rest of your document. So that's a really handy tool. I like using it for that reason. All right, so those are all of our basic formatting tools. Let's review really quickly what we've learned today. We've learned what a font is and how to change the font styles. We've learned that there are a lot of font styles out there for Google Docs. We've learned how to change the font size. We've learned what bold, italics, and underline is. We've learned how to change the font color, and we've learned how to highlight. We've also learned how to use clear formatting to delete everything we just did. To learn more tools and features in the Google Suite family of apps, check out more of my videos on YouTube or visit ToriNorman.com.